तव कथामृतम् तप्तजीवनम् कविभिरीडितम् कल्मषापहम् श्रवणमङ्गलम् श्रीमदाततम् भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः।
ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जना। Om. We are studying the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we are in the conversations of 1st January 1881 from the appendix, English page 1010. We remember that these are days prior to Master Mahashaya's visit to Sri Ramakrishna, and so the recording has been done by somebody else. And the heading of the chapter is with Keshav Dakshineshwar, but we shall find that the visit to Surendra and Manmohan also are included in this very chapter. We are now at present in the visit to Keshav Chandra Sen, and the master danced with the strength of a lion and went into Samadhi. Regaining consciousness of the outer world, he sat down in his room and began to talk with Keshav and the other devotees. With Keshav Dakshineshwar, so in his own room. And the Bengali page is 1099. Master, God can be realized through all paths. So that is what I have been teaching to Keshav. It is like you are coming to Dakshineshwar by carriage, by boat, by steamer, or on foot. So immediate available example. You are in Calcutta, you come to Dakshineshwar. But you can come by 4 different paths, 4 different vehicles. Similarly, God can be reached by different means, by different paths. You have chosen the way according to your convenience and taste. So the way you have chosen by your convenience and taste, that means by your constitution and also by the capacity. But the destination is the same. Some of you have arrived earlier than others, but all have arrived. So another time factor. Some may reach early, some may reach late, but all will reach if the effort is sincere. The more you rid yourself of upadhis, the nearer you will feel the presence of God. Upadhi are those things which are not our nature, and yet we are assumed as if they are our nature. That is called the upadhis. So the more you get rid of the upadhis, you will find presence of God in your own soul. Rainwater never collects on a high mount, so upadhis. It collects only in low land. Similarly, the water of God's grace cannot remain on the high mound of egotism. Egotism makes one feel very high. There, God's grace cannot stand. There, before God, one should feel lowly and poor before God. God is infinitely greater than us. This feeling must be there. And so we must feel lowly and poor in front of God. That meaning is that the Jnani say, I am He, but that is not to be said in the beginning. One should be extremely watchful. Even clothes create vanity. So watchful about one's own ego. I noticed that even a man suffering from an enlarged spleen sings Nidhu Babu's light song. Nidhu Babu's what is called Tappa, light classical, was famous in Bengal. That is a love song. So a man's health is not good, but he sings love songs when he is dressed up in a black bordered cloth. Black bordered cloth symbolizes the cloth of a newly married son-in-law. So when that black bordered cloth is there, he becomes filled with the spirit of son-in-law. And then he sings love song. Similarly, there are men who spout English wherever they put on high boots. So association creates the mood. If you have put on high boots, you feel you are English educated and you start speaking English only as if you have forgotten your Bengali. And when an unfit person puts on an ochre cloth, he becomes well. So for putting ochre cloth, fitness is necessary. It is a symbol of total renunciation. Without that, if you put on ochre cloth, then he becomes vain. The slightest sign of indifference to him arouses his anger and pain. So you have to show respect to him because of this cloth. Otherwise, he becomes angry. A man with real renunciation, putting on a ochre cloth will never feel like that. God cannot be seen without yearning of heart. And this yearning is impossible unless one has finished with the experiences of life, what is called bhogant. Life experiences, unless you have felt that the world is hollow, that there is nothing experience worthwhile, till then you have to go on experiencing. Those who live surrounded by women and gold and have not yet come to the end of their experiences, bhogant, do not yearn for God. So they have hankering, they cannot feel the love of God. Both these things cannot stand together. When I lived at Kamarpukur, Hriday's son, a child 4 or 5 years old, used to spend the whole day with me. He played with his toys and almost forgot everything else. But no sooner did evening come than he would say, I want to go to my mother. I would try to cajole him in various ways and would say, here, I will give you a pigeon, but he wouldn't be consoled with such things. He would weep and cry, I want to go to my mother. That is at the time of evening. So when that Bhoganta comes, then the hankering for God starts. Then he will not listen to any other talk of the world. He didn't enjoy playing anymore. I myself wept to see his state. Thakur, through that state, felt how the yearning for God should be there, nothing of the world. So that made Thakur weep. One should cry for God that way, like a child. So Thakur felt that once the hankering comes, one cries, one forgets this feeling of shame or this or that or worldly consideration. He expresses his hankering. That is what is meant to be restless for God. One doesn't enjoy play or food any longer. Play or food. After one's experience of the world are over, one feels this restlessness and weeps for God. So experience of the world themselves will never get over. But A point has to come when the yearning grows. When the inner spirit grows, then the end comes. So both the things are there. It is necessary that Bhoganta should be there. But if you simply wait for Bhoganta, it may never come. So the hankering has to be there, and it will start functioning when the Bhoganta comes. The devotee sat in silence, listening to the master's words. When evening came, a lamp was lighted in the room. Preparations were being made for feeding Keshav and the devotees. Keshav with a smile, "What? Puffed rice again today?" That is somewhat in a joke, somewhat that he has been fed like that. So today also same thing. You are not giving something special. Master smiling, Hriday knows. So that arrangement is not by Thakur, it is by Hridayaram. The devotees were served first with puffed rice and then with luchi and curry on the plate. So other things were there. Begin with cup of rice and then luchi. Luchi is the, what you know, the puri, the fried bread made of maida is called luchi. And that is what the Bengalis usually take as a special dish. And curry to eat with the luchis on a leaf plate. That is the old style. All enjoyed the meal very much. It was about 10 o'clock when supper was over, that food. The master went to the Panchavati with Keshav and his devotees. Master took Keshav and the others. One can very well live in the world after realizing God. So first try for realizing God, giving up everything else. Why don't you first touch the granny and then play hide and seek? So in the game hide and seek, if one touches the granny, one is already, play is over. But then one can repeat the play, knowing well that he will not be caught again. After attaining God, a devotee becomes unattached to the world. Then there is no attraction, no attachment, no I and my sense. He knows God is all. He lives like a mud fish. Lives in the mud, but mud does not attach to it. He lives in the mud of the world, but it does not attach to it. The mud fish keeps his body unstained, though it lives in mud. About 11 o'clock, the Brahmos became eager to go home. Pratap said, "It would be nice if you could spend the night here." Master to Keshav, "Why not stay here tonight?" Taking the hint from Pratap. So because of Thakur's presence, that urge had come in Pratap. Keshav smiling, "No, I have business to attend to. I must go." So for business he has to go. So Thakur will make a comment immediately. Master, why must you, my dear sir? Can't you sleep without your fish basket? So he'll tell a story. Once a fishwife was a guest in a gardener's house. She was asked to sleep in a room full of flowers, but she couldn't get any sleep there. All laughed, because even with flowers. She was restless and began to fidget about. The gardener called to her, "Hello there, why aren't you asleep?" "Oh, I don't know," said the fishwife. "There are flowers here. The smell keeps me awake. Can't you bring me my fish basket?" She sprinkled a little water in the basket, and when she smelled the fish, she fell fast asleep. All laughed heartily. So this is exactly the thing. Keshav and the others, they want business. Keshav took a few of the flowers that he had offered to at Sri Ramakrishna's feet as sanctified, like prasad, nirmal, feet on his arrival. He and his Brahmo devotees cried out as they saluted the master, "Hail Navavidhan!" Thus they bade him adieu. So Keshav's ideas went on changing, and he thought he has created or he has attained a new order of sadhana. And he saw Sri Ramakrishna be the embodiment of that sadhana. And so they would shout every time they leave, Jai Navavidanki Jai. That's all. Keshav's visit to Dakshineshwar on 1st January 1881 is over here. Now the second incident starts where Bengali Surendra Badite Ashad Maser Akdir. So the date is not noted. Ashad Mas, if you take it Bengali, then Vaishak, Jeshta, Ashad. April, May, June. Middle of June to middle of July. That is the Bengali Ashad. One day during the rainy season of 1881, Sri Ramakrishna and a number of devotees visited Surendra's house. It was about dusk. The master entered the drawing room on the second floor, where several of Surendra's neighbors had already gathered. Keshav had also been invited but could not come. Trailoki and a few Brahmo devotees were present. A mat covered with a white sheet was spread on the floor, and on it had been placed a beautiful carpet with a cushion. Surendra requested the master to sit on the carpet, but Sri Ramakrishna would not listen to him and sat on the mat next to Mahendra Goswami, one of Surendra's neighbors. So he did not want to be special something. So he sat with a devotee. Mahendra, to the devotees, for several months I spent most of my time with him, meaning Sri Ramakrishna. I have never before seen such a great man. His spiritual moods are not of the ordinary kind. He was Goswami from the lineage of Chaitanya's associate, Master to Mahendra. How dare you say that? I am the most insignificant of the insignificant, the lowest of the lowly. I am the servant of the servants of God. Krishna alone is great. So Krishna says, one need not compare with God. But if you have felt God in me, it is a different thing. As a man, don't praise me like a God. Krishna is none other than Satchidananda, the indivisible Brahman. The water of the ocean looks blue from a distance. Go near it and you will find it colorless. So Krishna is an appearance. The reality is absolute. He who is endowed with attributes is also without attributes. The absolute and the relative belong to the same reality. So that distinction should not be made. What is Nirgun Brahma is the same as Sagun Brahma. As we look at it, so long I is there, our experiences are Sagun Brahma. When beyond I only and world is the Nirgun Brahma. That experience. Why is Krishna Tribhanga bent in three places? Because of his love for Radha. So, Sri Krishna appears putting his foot on the knee, so bent in three ways. That is because of his inclination to Radha, he has become bent. That which is Brahman is also Kali. So, other than Krishna, other forms of God also are there. So, which is Brahman is Kali. The Adya Shakti, the original primordial power, who creates, preserves, and destroys the universe. So, Ishvara, Sri Ramakrishna is calling Kali, the create, preserver, and destroyer of the world. He of the universe. He who is Krishna is the same as Kali. So, these are different forms. The root is one. All these are sport and play. Now, oh, root here is not dhatu, mool ek. Mool ek, that means the origin is absolute reality. And when it comes to relative, the forms are different. That is Thakur's harmony. All these are sport and play. God can be seen. Intimate, direct experience of God is possible and should be had. He can be seen through the pure mind and the pure intelligence, buddhi, pure mind, pure buddhi. They can feel God, not the impure ones. Through attachment to woman and gold, the mind becomes impure. Then one cannot see it. Attachment to enjoyment and attachment to the means of enjoyment. The mind is everything. It is like a white cloth just returned from the laundry. It will take any color, you die with it. Knowledge is of the mind and ignorance is also of the mind. So man's instrument is mind. It can cultivate the real nature of God called knowledge, or it can remain indulgent in the subject-object world, which is ignorance. When you say that a certain person has become impure, you mean that impurity has colored his mind. Person has not become impure. His real nature has not become impure. His mind has become impure. Thakur clearly shows the difference. Surendra approached the master with a garland and wanted to put it around his neck, but the master took it in his hand and threw it aside. So he saw some vanity or egotism in Surendra, and that is not tolerated by God. Surendra's pride was wounded and his eyes filled with tears. He went to the west porch and sat with Ram, Manamohan and the others. In a voice choked with sadness, he said, I am really angry. How can a poor Brahmin know the value of a thing like that? I spent a lot of money for that garland and I refused to accept it. I was unable to control my anger and said that the other garlands were to be given away to the devotees. Now I realize it was all my fault. God cannot be bought with money. He cannot be possessed by a vain person. I have really been vain. Why should I accept my worship? So, Thakur's action immediately makes the devotee person concerned his mistake. That is the greatness. I don't feel like living anymore. Tears streamed down his cheeks and over his chest. So he felt the repentance. In the meantime, Trilokya was singing inside the room. The master began to dance in an ecstasy of joy. So he does not have anger or anything. He is filled with bliss always. He put around his neck the garland that he had thrown aside. So in that mood, everything is all right. Holding it with one hand, he swung it with the other as he danced and sang. Now Surendra's joy was unbounded because master has put in his neck. The master had accepted his offering. Surendra said to himself, God crushes one's pride, no doubt, but is also the cherished treasure of the humble and lowly. That is what master had told. The master now sang, behold, the two brothers have come. We know Chaitanya and his associate Nityananda are praised in this song, who weep while chanting Hari's name. The brothers who, in return for blows, offer to sinners Hari's love. So, two ruffians were there. They met Nityananda, and yet bleeding came, and yet Nityananda wanted to embrace them and said, you have beaten me, but take Hari's name. Behold them, drunk with Hari's love, who make the world drunk as well, embracing everyone as brother, even the outcast, shunned by men. Behold, the two brothers have come, who once were Rama, who once were Kanai and Balai of Braja. Kanai means Krishna, Balai means Balram. Now they have become Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, Nita and Nimai. Many of the devotees danced while Sri Ramakrishna sang this song. When the kirtan was over, everyone sat around the master and became engaged in pleasant conversation. Sri Ramakrishna said to Surendra, "Won't you give me something to eat?" Then he went into the inner apartments, the old customs, where the ladies saluted him. After the meal, Sri Ramakrishna left for Dakshineshwar. Now the third incident, Sri Ramakrishna in Manohan's house. Their date is known, that was June or July, and now December. Saturday, December 3, 1881. In the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna paid a visit to the householder disciple Manomohan at 23 Shimla Street, Calcutta. Shimulia. It was a small two-story house with a courtyard. The master was seated in the drawing room on the first floor. Ishan of Bhavanipur asked him, "Sir, why have you renounced the world? The scriptures extol the householder's life as the best." So some scripture that he should understand. Master, I don't know much about what is good and what is bad. I do what God makes me do and speak what He makes me speak. So don't associate with I, the ego, or I who feels himself to be real. I am his instrument. Whatever God does, ask God if you want. Ishan, if everybody renounced the word, they would be acting against God's will. So he is still persisting. Master, why should everybody renounce? That is not possible at all. On the other hand, can it be the will of God that all should revel in woman and God? So your idea is wrong. Like dogs and jackals, has he no other wish? God. Do you know what accords with his will and what is against it? So firstly he was taking tenderly, but when it was repeated, he came out in his full blow. You say that God wants everybody to live a worldly life, but why don't you see it as God's will when your wife and children die? If everything happens by God's will, then your wife and children will die. Then why don't you shout? Why don't you accept that? Why don't you revel? Why don't you make joy? Why don't you see his will in poverty when you haven't a morsel to eat? So, wife and money, they make you feel bad. So you don't believe everything happens by God's will. So no question whether householders are this. Maya won't allow us to know the will of God. That is the main thing. You are in Maya, you are in the delusion. How you know God's will? On account of God's Maya, the unreal appears as real and the real as unreal. That is Maya. The world is unreal. This moment it exists and the next it disappears. So this is the way to feel the unreality. It is evanescent, how it can be real. If it was not previously, it will not be afterwards, how it can be real now. But on account of his Maya, it seems to be real. It is only through his Maya that the ego seems to be the doer. Doer is God himself, not the ego. Furthermore, on account of this Maya, a man regards his wife and children, his brother and sister, his father and mother, his house and property as his very own. That is also delusion. There are two aspects of Maya, Vidya and Avidya. Within the unreal world, there are certain things which will help you to go Godwards, So Thakur calls it Vidya Maya. And things within the world which make you more and more attached are Avidya Maya. Terminology you should remember. In Shankar, Avidya and Maya are taken as same. But Thakur has shown a difference between Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. Avidya deludes one with worldliness, and Vidya, wisdom, devotion, and the company of holy men leads one to God. Vidya leads one to God, and Vidya is represented by these things: wisdom, devotion, and company of holy men. This is all within Maya, and yet they are leading to God. He who has gone beyond Maya through the grace of God views alike both Vidya and Avidya. That is a different thing. God is beyond them. So one who has gone beyond through the grace of God, then Maya Vidya and Avidya has no meaning for him. Worldly life is a life of enjoyment. After all, what is there to enjoy in woman and gold? As soon as the sweetmeat has gone down the throat, one doesn't remember whether it tasted sweet or sour. So the moment of contact only is joy, not next moment. But why should everybody renounce? Ah, everybody can worship God in his house also. But why should everybody renounce? Is renunciation possible except in the fullness of time? You have to get all experiences over, you have to get vairagya, then only. So, renunciation forcibly or false is not correct. Thakur's teaching is absolutely balanced. He is not asking everybody to renounce. The time for renunciation comes when one reaches the limit of enjoyment, bhoganta. Same thing. Through experience and through evolution. Can anybody force himself into renunciation? There is a kind of renunciation known as monkey renunciation. Markata Vairagya. Only small-minded people cultivate it. Take the case of a fatherless boy. His poor widowed mother earns her livelihood by spinning. The boy loses his insignificant job and suddenly she sees with a bit of renunciation. Wait, he puts on the ochre cloth of a monk and goes to Banaras. Place for monks, but he has gone there for different. A few days later, he writes home, I have secured a job for 10 rupees a month. In the meantime, he tries to buy a gold ring and beautiful clothes. How can he stifle his desire for enjoyment? So as soon as he gets some money, he wants other enjoyments. Means of enjoyment, money. Keshav arrived with some Brahmo devotees in Manamohan's house and respectfully saluted the master. He took a seat on Sri Ramakrishna's left. Ram on his right. For some time, a reader recited from the Bhagavata and explained the text that was arranged by Manohar. Master to the devotee. It is very difficult to do one's duty in the world. You must be alert. If you whirl round too fast, you will feel giddy and faint. But there is no such fear. If you hold on to a post, do your duty, but do not forget God. Then only you can properly live in the world. This pillar example is really wonderful. You may ask, if worldly life is so difficult, then what is the way? The way is constant practice, even in the world. At Kamarpukur, I have seen the woman of the carpenter family flattening rice with a husking machine. They are always fearful of the pestle smashing their fingers, and at the same time, they go on nursing their children and bargaining with customers. They say to the customers, pay us what you owe before you leave. With all that, they careful about the pestle, and like that one should live in the world. An immoral woman, another example, an immoral woman goes on performing her household duties, but all the time her mind dwells on her sweetheart. So mind can be it to concentrations. But one needs spiritual discipline to acquire such a state of mind. But this is only imagination. Unless you do spiritual practice, you cannot attain this state of mind where you can hold. So see the balance. One should pray to God in solitude every now and then, even in the house, worldly life. It is possible to perform worldly duties after obtaining love for God. So, if not directly realization, love for God is essential, then you can live in the worldly life. That has become very clear. If you try to break a jackfruit, your hands will be smeared with its sticky juice. But that won't happen if beforehand you rub them with oil. So that is devotion to God. Then you can cut the jackfruit. Example perfect. The kirtan began. Tiraloke was singing. The master danced. Keshav and the other devotees dancing with him. Though it was winter, the master became hot and perspired due to that dance. And he made the Brahmos dance. After the music, he wanted something to eat. A plate of sweetmeats was sent from the inner apartments. Keshav held the plate before Sri Ramakrishna and the master ate. So Keshav served like serving. Described nicely, though may not be by master aim. When he had finished, Keshav poured water on his hands and then dried the master's hands and face with a towel. So Keshav working like a servant. Afterwards, he began to fan the master. Full Keshav has become a attitude of servant to the master. Master to Keshav and the other devotees. They are heroes indeed who can pray to God in the midst of their worldly activities. Every angle is shown. They are like men who strive for God realization while carrying heavy loads on their heads. Such men are real heroes. You may say that this is extremely difficult, but is there anything, however hard, that cannot be achieved through God's grace? So difficult, definitely. But you must try, and with God's grace, you can succeed. Don't seek for an easy path. The easiest thing is for the water to flow down. Difficult it is. His grace makes even the impossible possible. If a lamp is brought into a room that has been dark 1,000 years, does it illumine the room little by little? The room is lighted all at once. So, effect of God's grace. You try, God's grace will come, and then this will happen. These reassuring words gladdened the hearts of Keshav and the other householder devotees. Keshav to Rajendra Mitra, the uncle of Ram and Manomohan. Wouldn't it be nice if you could arrange a festival like this at your house one day? Rajendra, very good, I will. Well, Ram, you will have to take charge of everything. So actual execution will be by Ram. Rajendra, their mama, has agreed to hold it in his house. Sri Ramakrishna was asked to go to the inner apartments where Manomohan's mother had prepared his meal. A glass of ice water, of which the master was very fond, was placed near his plate. Keshav and the other devotees sat in the courtyard and were treated to a sumptuous feast. Others also. The master joined them and watched them eat. So after finishing his food, master came out. He danced and sang to entertain the guests. When it was time for Sri Ramakrishna to leave for Dakshineshwar, Keshav and the other devotees took the dust of his feet and saw him off in a hired carriage. So they showed full respect. So these last few days we are reading slowly. So here we stop today. We may finish up this topic tomorrow, and then we have a letter from Ashwini Kumar Datta. So I stop here. We may even read out the chronology of Sri Ramakrishna's life, which is given at the end. So we stop here. Better to drink some water. Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jivanam Kavibiriditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Shrimadatam Muhigrunanti Ye Bhurida Jana Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.